I'm giving up my fortune for you, the cleaner, the millionaire said, and she did the impossible. Elias Thorne never imagined the woman who would change his entire life was scrubbing the floor of his office that Tuesday morning. At 36, Elias had built a formidable tech empire in Austin, Texas. His company, Thorne Digital, occupied 3 floors of a sleek skyscraper downtown, and he spent most of his days locked away in his top-floor office, surrounded by contracts, spreadsheets, and the gnawing loneliness that money couldn't cure. That morning, he arrived earlier than usual. The building was silent as he rode the private elevator up. Opening his office door, he stopped short. A woman with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail was kneeling, diligently scrubbing a stain out of the carpet. She looked up and visibly flinched when she saw him. "Excuse me, Mr. Thorne," said Maria Reyes, quickly getting to her feet. "I didn't know you'd be in so early. I'll finish later." Elias paused. Maria had an honest, tired look, but there was a resolute quality about her that made him hesitate before dismissing her, as he did with every other cleaner. "You don't have to leave," Elias replied, surprised by his own words. "Keep working. I just need to grab some files." Maria nodded and returned to the carpet. Elias pretended to look for papers on his mahogany desk, but found himself watching the dedication with which she cleaned every corner, as if the office belonged to her. "How long have you worked here?" he asked, breaking the silence. "3 months, sir," Maria replied without stopping her work. "I took the overnight shift because I have to look after my daughter during the day." "You have a daughter?" "Yes, she's 7. Maria smiled for the first time, and Elias watched her face transform. "Her name is Valentina." Elias nodded and returned to his pretense, but something about the encounter stayed with him all day. Maybe it was Maria's simplicity, so different from the people he associated with, or maybe it was the fact that for the first time in years, someone had spoken to him without interest in his net worth. When he returned to his empty mansion in the Westlake Hills that night, Elias was shocked to find himself thinking about the cleaner and her 7-year-old. In the following days, he started coming in early on purpose, always finding Maria in his office. He learned she lived in a small apartment in East Austin, had studied business management but couldn't finish due to lack of funds, and worked 3 different jobs to support her daughter alone. "What about Valentina's dad?" Elias asked one morning, sipping his coffee while watching Maria tidy the books on his shelf. "He left when he found out I was pregnant," Maria answered without resentment. "It was for the best. Valentina and I are fine on our own." Elias admired her strength. In his business world, people often gave up at the first sign of trouble. Maria was different. "Why don't you go back to school?" Elias asked. "With what money, Mr. Thorne?" Maria smiled, devoid of irony. "And when? I work from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. here, then from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. cleaning Mrs. Henderson's house, and from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the local market. By the time I get home, Valentina is already asleep." Elias fell silent. For the first time in his life, he was faced with a reality his money couldn't fix with a simple wire transfer. That Friday, as Maria finished cleaning, Elias made an impulsive decision. "Maria," he said, rising from his desk, "I'd like to invite you and your daughter to lunch on Sunday." Maria stopped cleaning and stared at him, bewildered. "Mr. Thorne, Please," Elias insisted. "Not as boss and employee, just as friends." Maria hesitated, studying his face. There was a genuine loneliness in Elias's voice that she recognized, which made her finally nod. "Okay," she said, "but somewhere low-key. Valentina isn't used to fancy places." Elias smiled, and for the first time in years, it was a genuine smile. "I know the perfect spot," he said, unaware that that meal would change everything for them. The restaurant Elias chose was a simple, authentic spot in South Congress, with wooden tables and the homey smell of traditional Mexican food. Elias arrived nervous, dressed in jeans and a plain shirt, clothes he rarely wore. Maria arrived on time with Valentina, a curly-haired girl with curious eyes, who hid behind her mother when she saw Elias. "Valentina, this is Mr. Elias," Maria said softly. "He works in the building where Mommy cleans." "Hi, Valentina," Elias said, crouching to her level. "Your mom told me you like to draw." Valentina nodded shyly. "I brought something for you." Elias pulled a set of colored pencils and a sketchbook from his bag. "I thought you might like these." Valentina's eyes lit up. She looked at her mother for permission. What do you say? Maria prompted. Thank you, Mr. Elias, Valentina whispered, taking the gift carefully. During the meal, Elias discovered a world he had never known. He listened as Maria recounted her frantic mornings trying to get Valentina to school on time, her nights inventing stories when they couldn't afford books, and the small miracles that stretched their budget until the end of the month. What about you, Mr. Elias? Maria asked. Do you have family? Elias hesitated. He rarely spoke about his personal life. My parents died in a car accident when I was 25, he said. Since then, I've just focused on work. That must be so lonely, Maria commented with sincerity. Yeah, Elias admitted, surprised by his own honesty. I haven't had a conversation like this in years. Valentina, having finished eating, was already drawing in her new sketchbook. Elias was fascinated by the girl's concentration. What are you drawing? He asked. A house, Valentina answered, with a big yard and a tree I can climb. We live in an apartment, Maria explained. She always dreams of a house with a yard. Elias looked at the simple drawing and felt something stir in his chest. When was the last time he'd had a dream so pure? After eating, they walked through the streets of South Congress. Elias showed them the historic buildings and told stories about Austin he'd learned as a boy, before his life was reduced to numbers and contracts. You know so much about the city, Maria said, impressed. My dad used to bring me here when I was little, Elias replied with a touch of nostalgia. He said it was important to know your roots before you could dream of flying high. He sounds like a very wise man. He was. Elias stopped in front of a quirky bookstore. We used to come here every Saturday. He'd let me pick out a book, and then we'd get hot chocolate in the plaza. Valentina, who had been quiet, tugged on Elias's hand. Mr. Elias, do you want to see my finished drawing? Elias looked at the paper. The girl had drawn 3 figures holding hands in front of a simple house. A woman, a man, and a little girl. That's us, Valentina explained simply. Elias felt a lump in his throat. Maria blushed and tried to take the drawing. Valentina, Mr. Elias must have important things to do. No, Elias said firmly, holding the picture. This is the best gift I've ever been given. That afternoon, for the first time in over 10 years, Elias didn't think about work, money, or business. He only thought about how good it felt to have someone to talk to, laugh with, and just be with. When he drove them back to their small apartment in East Austin, Elias was struck by the simplicity of the neighborhood. The building was old, the walls needed paint, but when Maria opened the door, he found a small, clean, and orderly home, with Valentina's drawings taped to the fridge and the scent of flowers Maria grew in pots on the windowsill. Sorry for the mess, Maria said, embarrassed. It's not a mess, Elias replied sincerely. It's a home. It's been a long time since I've seen one. As they said goodbye at the door, Valentina suddenly hugged him. Are you going to visit us again? She asked. Elias looked at Maria, who avoided his gaze. If your mom lets me, he said. Of course, Maria replied quietly. But Mr. Elias. Just Elias, he corrected her. Elias, she repeated, and the name sounded different on her lips. Thank you for today. Valentina hasn't been this happy in a long time. On the drive back to his mansion, Elias drove in silence, thinking about everything he had discovered that day. He realized happiness wasn't in the numbers in his bank account, but in a little girl's smile and the simplicity of a genuine conversation. Arriving at his empty house, he looked at the luxurious rooms and, for the first time, wondered if this was truly a life or just an existence disguised as success. In the following weeks, Elias found himself eagerly awaiting the mornings he would run into Maria at the office. Their talks grew longer and more personal, and he found himself sharing childhood stories he hadn't spoken of in years. Have you ever thought about having kids? Maria asked one morning while organizing documents Elias had left scattered on his desk. Elias stopped typing and considered the question. I used to, but work always came first. Now, he paused. Now I wonder if it's too late to start a family. You're only 36, Maria said. It's not too late for anything. And you, do you think about getting married again? Maria smiled sadly. After what happened with Valentina's dad, I learned to be cautious. Besides, what man would want a woman with a child and no money? Any man with a brain, Elias responded without thinking. Maria looked at him, surprised. and he realized he'd spoken his thoughts aloud. An awkward silence settled until Elias's phone rang, breaking the moment. Sunday visits to Maria and Valentina became a routine. He took them on simple outings, to the Zilker Park, to the Ladybird Lake, or just walking through the Lamar Street Market, where Valentina went wild over the colors and flavors. During these outings, Elias discovered parts of himself he had forgotten. He remembered how much he enjoyed teaching when he helped Valentina with her homework. He rediscovered the satisfaction of cooking when they prepared a simple meal together in Maria's apartment. He realized he had spent years accumulating money, but forgot to live. One afternoon, while Valentina played in the apartment courtyard with other kids, Elias and Maria were chatting in the living room. "Can I ask you a personal question?" Maria said. "Of course. Why does a man like you, with everything you have, spend his Sundays here with us?" Elias was quiet for a long moment. "Because here I feel like myself," he finally answered. "In my world, people only approach me for the money. With you two, for the first time in years, I feel like you see me for who I really am." "And who are you really?" Maria asked softly. "I don't know," Elias admitted. "I spent so long being the successful CEO that I forgot who I was underneath it all." Maria reached out and briefly touched his hand. "I see a good man," she said, "a man who treats my daughter with kindness, who listens to my stories without judgment, who isn't embarrassed to help with the dishes or sit on the floor to play." Elias felt his heart pound faster at her touch. "Maria, I—" Just then Valentina ran in. "Mommy, can I show my new drawings to Uncle Elias?" "Uncle Elias?" Elias repeated, touched. "That's what she tells the other kids to call you," Maria explained, smiling. Elias opened his arms and Valentina ran into them. As he hugged her, he looked over her head at Maria and saw the same affection he felt growing in his heart. That night, Elias made a life-changing decision. He called his accountant and lawyer. "I want to set up a scholarship fund," he said, "for single mothers who want to go back to school." "How many scholarships, Mr. Thorne?" the accountant asked. "Start with 10, and I want it to be anonymous. They should never know where the money is coming from." "Any particular recipient in mind?" Elias thought of Maria, who deserved a chance to fulfill her dreams. "Yes," he said, "I have one in mind." The next day, when he arrived at the office, he found Maria earlier than usual, sitting in his chair with a letter in her hand and tears in her eyes. "Maria, what happened?" Elias asked, alarmed. "I got a full scholarship," she said, her voice cracking, "to finish my business degree. I don't know who did it, but—" Elias feigned surprise, but his heart was soaring with joy. "That's incredible," he said. "You deserve it and more." Maria stood up and on impulse hugged him. "Thank you," she whispered. "I know it sounds strange, but I feel like you brought luck into my life." Elias hugged her back, inhaling the simple scent of her hair, wishing he could tell her the truth. But he knew Maria had too much pride to accept charity, even if it came from the heart. "When do classes start?" he asked. "Next week. They're at night, so I can keep working during the day." Elias nodded, but in his mind, he was already planning how to help her reduce her work hours so she could focus on her studies, all without her finding out. When Maria left to continue cleaning on other floors, Elias was alone in his office, looking out the window at the city that had only ever been the backdrop of his business deals. Now it looked different, more colorful, more alive. For the first time in his life, Elias was in love, and it terrified him more than any risky venture he had ever undertaken. 3 months passed since Maria started university. Elias watched with admiration as she balanced work, studies, and motherhood with a determination that impressed him daily. Their mornings in the office became the most anticipated moments of the day for both of them. Maria told him about her classes and professors, and Elias felt a paternal pride watching her intellectual growth. "Professor Martinez said I have a knack for human resources," Maria shared one Thursday morning. "I never thought I'd be good at that." "You're good at everything you do," Elias replied sincerely. "You have a natural gift for understanding people." "I learned it raising Valentina," Maria said, smiling. "A child teaches you to read between the lines." Elias nodded, thinking about how Maria had learned to read his own emotional needs without him having to voice them. That afternoon, Elias had an important meeting with international investors. The deal he was closing was worth millions. But throughout the presentation, He found himself thinking about how to share the news with Maria on Sunday. After the meeting, his partner, Richard Medina, sought him out. "Elias, I need to talk to you," Richard said, closing the office door. "About the contract." "No, it's not that. It's about the cleaner." Elias felt a chill. "Maria, what about her?" "People are talking, Elias. They say you're coming in early to see her, that you spend Sundays together. This is not good for your image." "My image?" Elias repeated, a flash of anger rising. "You're the CEO of the company. You can't be involved with a cleaner. Think of what the clients, the investors will say." "First," Elias said, standing up slowly, "Maria is not just a cleaner. She is an intelligent, hardworking, and honest woman. Second, my personal life is not the company's business." "Elias, be realistic. You're from totally different worlds. This will never work." "Get out of my office," Elias said, his voice controlled but firm. "Elias, leave, now." After Richard left, Elias stood alone, thinking about his partner's words. He knew Richard wasn't entirely wrong about the differences between them. But did it really matter? That weekend, Elias arrived at Maria's apartment earlier than usual. He found her studying at the kitchen table while Valentina watched cartoons in the living room. "How was your week?" Elias asked, kissing Valentina's forehead and sitting next to Maria. "Tough," Maria replied. "I had an accounting exam that almost killed me, but I think I did okay." "I'm sure you aced it." Maria closed her book and looked at Elias. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why have you never asked me about my life before Valentina? My dreams, my plans?" Elias hesitated. The truth was, he was so captivated by the person she was now that he hadn't thought much about her past. "Because you're perfect just the way you are," he said simply. Maria smiled, but there was a melancholy in her eyes. "You know, I used to dream of having my own small business, just to help other women like me, single moms who need a chance. And why can't you fulfill that dream now?" "Because dreams cost money, Elias, and I have a daughter to raise." Elias's heart ached. He wanted so badly to help her openly, without any secrecy or anonymity. "What if someone wanted to invest in your idea?" he asked carefully. "Who is going to invest in a cleaner with a dream?" Maria laughed without bitterness. "I would invest," Elias said impulsively. Maria stopped laughing and looked at him seriously. "Elias, you're really kind." "It's not kindness," Elias interrupted, deciding it was time to be honest about his feelings. "Maria, I need to tell you something." Just then, Elias's phone rang. It was Richard, and the urgency in his tone forced Elias to answer. "Elias, we have a problem," Richard said. "Someone leaked information about the contract we closed yesterday. The press is digging into the company." "Like what?" "They're also asking questions about your personal life, about your relationship with an employee." Elias looked at Maria, who had stopped pretending not to listen. "I'm on my way," Elias said, hanging up. "Did something serious happen?" Maria asked, concerned. Elias hesitated, looking at the innocence in her eyes and realizing that soon she would discover the true dimension of his wealth and power. And when that happened, everything between them could change. "Maria," he said, taking her hands, "there are things about my life that you don't know, and I need to tell you before you find out from others." "What things?" Elias took a deep breath, knowing the next words could destroy the truest relationship he had ever had. "About who I really am, and about how much I've fallen in love with you." Maria remained silent for a long time, processing Elias's words. Valentina, oblivious to the tension, was still watching her cartoons in the living room. "Fallen in love with me?" Maria repeated softly. "Yes," Elias said, holding her hands firmly. "And I know it might seem impossible given our differences." "What differences, Elias?" Maria interrupted. "You're a good man. I'm a good woman. What other differences matter?" Elias realized she truly didn't know the magnitude of his wealth. To Maria, he was just the owner of a small company. "Maria, my company isn't small. I own Thorn Digital. We have offices in 5 countries and bring in millions a year." Maria slowly released his hands. "Millions?" she repeated. "Yes, and there's something else. The scholarship you received." "It was you," Maria said, standing up. "Of course it was you. I wanted you to have the opportunity to fulfill your dreams." "You lied." Maria exclaimed, and Valentina looked at them from the living room. I'm sorry, she said more softly, but Elias, you lied to me all these months. I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you everything. It's the same thing. Maria started pacing back and forth in the tiny kitchen. You made me feel like you're equal when you were really giving me charity. It was never charity, Elias protested, standing up as well. Everything I feel for you, everything we've built together is real. Real, Maria laughed bitterly. You're a millionaire who enjoys playing in a simple life on the weekends, and I'm the poor fool who fell for your fantasy. It's not like that. Then how is it, Elias? Explain to me how a man with millions gets involved with a cleaner. Elias fell silent, searching for the right words. Because with you, I felt alive for the first time in years, he finally said. Because you see me as Elias, not a bank account. Because your daughter calls me Uncle Elias, and that thrills me more than any deal I've ever closed. Maria stopped pacing and looked at him. And what do you want from me, Elias? To be your secret mistress? To support me while I pretend it's love? I want you to be my wife, Elias said, without hesitation. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the TV. Maria sat down heavily in the chair. Wife, she repeated. You want a cleaner from East Austin to be the wife of a millionaire? I want Maria Reyes, the bravest, most honest woman I've ever met, to be my partner for the rest of my life. And Valentina, I want to adopt her legally. I want her to have every opportunity money can buy, but more importantly, I want to give her the father's love she deserves. Maria started to cry silently. Elias, you don't understand. People will say I'm a gold digger, that I took advantage of you, your family, your friends, your partners. I don't have family, and friends who care more about money than my happiness aren't real friends. And your job, your company. None of that matters without you, Elias said, kneeling in front of her chair. Maria, I'll give up my fortune for you if I have to. We can start over together. I can learn to live simply. You can't give up everything for me. Yes, I can, because I discovered that a life without love, no matter how rich, is empty. And with you, even if we only had this small apartment, I would be the richest man in the world. Valentina appeared in the kitchen doorway. Why are you crying? She asked, worried. Maria wiped her tears and opened her arms for her daughter. Come here, my love. Elias stood up, but Valentina ran to him first, hugging his legs. Is Uncle Elias sad? She asked. A little, Elias admitted. Can I draw something to make you happy? Elias looked at Maria over Valentina's head. Really, he said, I was wondering if you two would like to live in a big house with me, with a yard where you can play and climb trees. For real? Valentina's eyes lit up. And you'll be my real dad? Elias felt his heart stop. If your mom lets me, he replied. Valentina ran to Maria. Mommy, please, I really want a dad. Maria looked at her daughter, then at Elias, and saw not the millionaire, but the man who had spent Sundays teaching Valentina to draw, helping her with homework, and bringing color to their gray lives. Elias, she finally said, if we are going to be together, it has to be as true partners. I don't want you to support me. I want to work, contribute, be useful. You can manage the scholarship fund, Elias quickly suggested. It can be the start of your own company to support single mothers. And the people who will talk badly about us, let them talk. The only opinion that matters is ours and Valentina's. Maria was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, she said, but on one condition. What is it? I want you to propose to me properly. Not out of pity, not out of charity, but because you truly love me. Elias smiled, and to Maria's surprise, pulled a small box from his pocket. I thought you'd never ask, he said, opening the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring. Maria Reyes, will you marry me? Not because I'm rich, but because I am a better man when I am with you. Yes, Maria answered, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I will. Valentina clapped and jumped with joy. We're going to be a real family. Elias placed the ring on Maria's finger and kissed her softly. When they parted, she whispered, And now how are we going to face your world together? Together, Elias replied, the way it always should have been. 6 months later, Elias and Maria were married in a simple ceremony at a beautiful chapel in Austin. Maria wore a simple but elegant white dress, and Valentina was the flower girl, scattering rose petals down the aisle. The press tried to turn the wedding into a scandal, but Elias faced the questions with dignity. "I married the woman I love," he told reporters, "a woman who taught me that true wealth isn't measured in money, but in love, family, and purpose." Maria, now a college graduate with her business degree, took charge of the scholarship fund, which had grown and was helping hundreds of women a year. Her first initiative was to create a support center for single mothers, offering not only education, but also childcare and career guidance. "You changed my life," Elias said one evening while watching Valentina play in the yard of their new home. "We changed each other's lives," Maria corrected. "And now we're changing the lives of others too." Elias agreed, embracing his wife. His company continued to thrive, but now he worked with a greater purpose. Part of the profits went to social projects, and he discovered that earning money to help others was far more rewarding than accumulating senseless wealth. "Daddy Elias," Valentina called from the garden. She was 9 now and had been officially adopted by Elias. "Come play with us." Elias looked and saw the girl was holding a baby, Michael, the son he and Maria had welcomed the year before. "We're coming," Elias replied, getting up. "Do you regret anything?" Maria asked, standing too. Elias thought for a moment. He had lost some business partners who disapproved of his choice. He faced mean-spirited comments from high society. He constantly had to prove that his marriage was for love, not charity. "Nothing," he answered sincerely. "For the first time in my life, I know what it means to be truly rich." Maria smiled and interlaced her fingers with his. "Then let's go," she said. "Our family is waiting." As they walked together toward the garden where their children were playing, Elias reflected on the path that had led them there. Sometimes the greatest riches in life are disguised as simplicity, and true love knows no social boundaries. Sometimes the biggest transformations start with the smallest gestures. True love for you knows no social barriers, and genuine happiness isn't bought. It's built with the courage to be authentic and the generosity to open our hearts. If you love this story, let us know in the comments below, share it with your friends, Rashad, and make sure to subscribe to Rich Hearts Revealed for more unforgettable stories of love that breaks the mold.